is the difference between these terms? Hey, I am Chuck the Bureaucrat, and in the context of military disabilities, there are two terms that sound a lot alike but have very different implications for your benefits. Those terms are service-connected and combat-related. And one of the obvious places that this crops up is with two programs: concurrent retired and disability pay and combat-related special compensation. CRDP is for service-connected and CRSC is for combat-related. But who makes the determination about whether or not a disability is one or the other? And quite frankly, how do they do it? Well, to get started, a service-connected disability is sort of like your basic tier of disability. It means that you have an injury or an illness that was caused or made worse by your military service. The usual way the connection between the injury or illness and your military service is made is either by the VA looking at your military medical records, or through a presumptive condition, or with a nexus letter. It's really when you want to elevate a service-connected disability to combat-related that things get difficult. A good reference on this is the Financial Management Regulation, Volume 7B, Chapter 63. It's the one that deals with CRSC. And the answers are down in paragraphs 5 and 6. The appropriate service determines whether a service member has a combat-related disability. That's the reason that DFAS processes CRDP automatically, but you've got to submit a request to your service if you want to be upgraded to CRSC. Now, how do they make this determination? Well, there's really 5 criteria, and you got to meet at least one of them. The first one is easy: a Purple Heart disability, where there is documentation of a causal link between an injury or illness that led to a Purple Heart and that injury or illness is a disability. The rules for the other 4 combat-related criteria, well, they're in paragraph 6. Direct result of armed conflict. This requires a causal relationship between the armed conflict and the resulting disability. It is not enough to be in an area of armed conflict or during a period of war. Similarly, you have while engaged in hazardous service. This includes aerial flight, parachute duty, diving, experimental stress duty. I don't know what that is, but I want no part of it. But you need the direct causal link that the disability is a result of the duty. Just traveling to that kind of duty, well, that doesn't count as combat related. Things get a little fuzzier with duties under conditions simulating war. Again, you need that direct causal link, but you can include tactical exercises, live fire, grenade ranges, leader reaction courses, hand-to-hand combat training, obstacle courses. Now, what I think is a little bit funny is that physical training to include supervised sports does not count. So even though that dodgeball game can get pretty brutal, it's not going to count. The final criteria for combat-related disabilities are disabilities involving an instrumentality of war. That is, like a device or a vessel or a vehicle that's designed primarily for military service. In this case, it matters less what the service member was doing than that the device or vehicle caused the injury that led to the disability. For example, imagine there's a group of soldiers and they're playing football, and one of these guys runs into the side of a tank hard enough that he breaks his jaw, and that leads to a disability rating. That is not combat related because the tank did not cause the injury. But if that same group of soldiers were out playing that same game of football, and in the meantime somebody was moving the tank from the motor pool to the wash racks and hit one of the soldiers in such a way to cause the same injury and disability, that would be combat related because the tank caused the injury. So that's who determines something is combat related and how it gets determined. But what does that really mean? Well, I think that there is a way for this to be played, but I'm not 100% sure that there's really that much to be gained. As far as I can tell, the only real benefit of switching from CRDP to CRSC is that the benefits are tax deductible. And I'm not sure that that's worth all the effort I'm about to describe. You see, the problem you're going to run into is that by the time you reach the point that you have to prove that an injury or illness was combat related, your ability to document that fact is going to be well past. Want to get the combat relatedness of an injury or illness documented in your medical records at the time you receive the medical treatment. That means making sure that the medical folks enter the details. And in the heat of the moment, I'm not exactly sure that paperwork would be your highest priority. So I don't exactly know what the best way forward would be. But maybe some of you guys have some ideas. And in the meantime, take a look at presumptive conditions to see a way that this whole thing can get a lot simpler.